have to go the long way down the drive today because it is icy. And I wouldn't want to spill the dog food. They would be so upset. But, as usual, it's another beautiful day. I won't show you the whole thing, but every night the dogs go out and they bark and bark and bark. And we haven't lost any animals apart from a guinea fowl in the spring to predation, even though we know there's lots of coyotes around here. But this morning the dogs, well, last night actually, dragged something into the yard. I'll just show you a little bit of it so I don't gross you out. But I'm not sure if they were the cause of this or just stumbled across it. But either way, that's one less coyote in the yard. Today is day 16. Oh, it's not yarn today. Let's find out what we've got. Oh, I love these little sachets. And it doesn't even smell like sheep. It smells like lavender. That's much better. Although I don't really mind the smell of sheep either. Hello. Those of you from Europe will be disgusted with what I'm about to say, but I did the good old North American Costco run today, and it took me an hour and a half to put everything away. Well, I mean, like I didn't buy that much stuff, but I had to clean the fridge and clean the pantry so that I could organize it all and figure out, how many months worth of supplies I now have. So yeah, we don't do the 1 to 2 grocery shops like a week. We do like I do the run to the oh my goodness, I can't speak today. The root cellar run, and then occasionally get some fresh mandarins right now and maybe some raspberries, although they're not in season, so that's technically bad. But I can't resist them. And cheese and meat. And then I go to our milk supplier once a week. But the staples, like the garbage that the kids insist on eating, the noodles and the chips and the crackers and all the things, it's best to get that at Costco and just get it a lot. And then you're good for a while. So I feel like I'm pretty much ready for Christmas. I thought maybe this would be a good opportunity, since we were talking about podcasts and Charles Dickens yesterday, to tell you a little bit about the books that I've been reading the last couple of months. I love reading, but I don't read during the day. I'm just busy and don't give myself time to sit. So what I do is I have my handy dandy e-reader, and I read at night before bed until my eyes just can't focus on the words. So between 5 to 15 minutes a night is usually what I do. And sometimes I'll read it that 3 o'clock wake up when your brain starts going and you should be asleep, and you should be asleep, and oh my gosh, you only have 3 more hours, and now you only have 2.5 more hours, and now you only have 1 hour, and you sit there just wishing you could sleep. So sometimes it's better to just read, and then maybe you'll get tired enough to go back to sleep. And if not, then you get to enjoy a good book. So what have I been reading lately? I reread actually Pearl S. Buck's The Good Earth. Can you see that? There. And that is a story of a farmer in China prior to communism, just prior to communism in China. And it's a sad, dreary book, to be honest. It's a good glimpse into life. I think it's fairly historically accurate, but it's sad. The women just work so hard and have no value. Don't seem to have much value. And you have the gamut of women, although it is not about women. It's about Wang Lung, who's the protagonist in the story. But you have his wife, and then you have his second wife, his second wife, she called him a second wife. And then his third wife. And yeah, there just aren't really any lovable characters in this book, but I guess that's probably more like real life than fiction, because nobody's perfect and nobody's a saint, except for the saints, I guess. But anyway, this book is just kind of like down to earth, earthy, good earth. You know what I mean? So if you've read it, you might have had to read it in school. I'm pretty sure I read that in university, and just chose to reread it. And it's funny because I thought I would remember it more, but I didn't really remember much. So it was nice to reconnect. It was a good, solid, put you to sleep kind of book. Good bedtime reading. The next one I read was Stephen King fairy tale, and that was wonderful. I really tried to milk this one, like I tried to read as slowly as I can. And Stephen King books are like, huge. I've only just sort of discovered him as an author in the last couple of years. I don't know why I didn't pick up a Stephen King book before. I think maybe I was too scared. Like I think I'm too tired to have an active imagination now, but I used to have a very active imagination and can really scare myself, like to the point where you're like, I have to pee so bad, but I'm not getting out of bed because I know there's something under there. Irrational kind of imaginary stuff. So I never read any of his books until I picked up that So You Like It Darker last year, which is a collection of short stories. And they were so good. He's just so good. He's brilliant. He's a brilliant writer. So I thought, okay, I'm going to commit to a whole novel this time. And boy, what a novel. It's wonderful. So the protagonist, the only criticism I would have on this book really is that the story is told through the lens of what would he be, 16, 17-year-old boy, high school kid. And it reads more like it's being told by a 7-year-old man. You know what I mean? Like the voice is not resonant with a 17-year-old boy. But he does address that at the very end of the book and says that these are his memories it's his memoir, and he's now, I think, a professor, and he's an adult. And so that accounts for that adult tone in the book. But otherwise, it's a great story. It's a story of a boy, a teenage boy who he's just a bit different, more thoughtful, more kind than his peers, and a little bit more mature because he lost his mom when he was young. And so he ends up befriending an old man up the street and looking after him in his decline because he has fallen off of a ladder. And the old man has a dog named Radar who also needs care. And then all kinds of magical, cool things happen. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's great. And there's just so many parallels to the classic fairy tales, but without, it's Stephen King, so it's not going to be fluffy and Disneyfied. It's just really good, but it's also not so dark that you're afraid to get out of bed at 3 a.m. to go pee. So it was a really good book, and I enjoyed every moment of it. The next one I read was called, hang on, that one's still, I stopped reading it. Hang on a sec. How do I go back to that? Cover. Okay. Raising Hare by Chloe Dalton. Now, if you love bunnies, this is about rabbits, which isn't quite the same thing, but kind of, in that they're cute and they're wild and they're kind of untamable. Rabbits are anyway. I mean, hares are. So it's a story of a woman who, worked in government in England and had a country house somewhere. And during COVID was home quite a bit, and then discovered that there was a hare. Was it injured? Must have been, or scared, or whatever it was. Anyway, she rescues it and brings it into her home, and then does a whole bunch of research into the lives of hares. And so it's a very cool educational book about hares and why they are still wild, why they aren't pets. And she's a brilliant woman, but I don't know why she didn't figure this out. So what happens when you have more than one rabbit? Yeah, so she ended up having so many rabbits and many generations of rabbits, and all of them are not tame, but they're all around her property. And it's just like, multiplying and multiplying. And that's about the point where I quit, because I was just like, ugh, this is, I think this is sort of me being too country for this book, because in the country, and I don't mean to sound cruel or mean, but life and death isn't quite the same thing as in the city. Like, for example, if I had a beloved family pet that had cancer, I wouldn't spend thousands of dollars giving it chemotherapy. I would just say, this animal had a really great life, and now that life is over. And so we're going to, give this animal a painless and humane ending. So that is a bit more country than, like I have a good friend whose dog has cancer, and so she took it to a specialist in Edmonton, which is 3 hours away, and really seriously considered the tens of thousands of dollars it was going to take to treat this dog, to give it maybe one more year of maybe not great quality of life. So yeah, anyway, I just had to stop reading it. It was just kind of making me mad, and I was just like, it's not that I think there's anything wrong with being kind to animals. I think that's a good thing, but you have to maybe draw a line somewhere and say, this is a wild animal, so maybe I should just let this wild animal be a wild animal. And if you've read this, then you definitely want to argue with me and say, yeah, but it's the humans that are impacting their environment and their homes, and they're ruining everything. And like, harvest is when rabbits just die, or hares just die needlessly because they don't get out of the way of the machines. And that's horrible and that's wrong. But we all like to eat. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but it is. Anyway, we don't need to get into a deep one. I just, that wasn't for me. That book was not for me. All right, the next one. Oh, now I have to get back to the cover. There we go. Oh, that's a different cover. Okay, well, whatever. I'll just show you this cover. So this is an oldie, Bear by Marian Engel. This is part of the Great Canadian Canon of Literature, although I did not read it when I took Canadian literature in university. And possibly the reason I didn't read it is because you can look at it in 2 ways. The first way is as a treatise on feminism and solid, oh my goodness, what's the word? Well, a strong, independent woman who's in control of her own life, body, and sexuality. Or you can look at it like the Bear book. Pardon my French. Because that's what happens. Like, the actual story is that there's this woman who works in a museum or some kind of archive place in Toronto in the 70s, and she's having an affair. Well, she's not married, but her boss is married, having an affair with her boss, and she's just always been very flippant about her sexual exploits, but not wanting to commit to anyone. And I don't know if that's jaded her view on men, but anyway, this institute that she works at is gifted an island in northern Ontario, and everything in the house it needs to be cataloged for the use of the institute. And then they may choose to use these things as museum pieces, or maybe they would use the house or the cabin as a sabbatical place or retreat or something. But anyway, her job is to go up there and catalog everything. So to get to the island, first she has to drive to the middle of nowhere and then talk to the guy, the yokel at the general store, who's also the fix-it guy and the do-everything guy, the jack of all trades guy. And he drives her out to the island, and that's when she discovers that the island has been inhabited by The same family that came over from England many years ago. He was a general or something like that. And for some reason, they've always kept a pet bear. Now, if you know anything about bears, you know they're not pets. They're wild animals, kind of like the hares, and they just do bear things. But anyway, this bear, from the time that the last owner of this house cabin died, the bear had been looked after by the locals. There was a local native woman who came with her son to look after the bear, and then this guy, the jack of all trades, including bear sitting, also looked after the bear. So it's chained up. It was intriguing, for sure. It's a beautifully told story, even though it's kind of weird at the end. So the bear's chained up. He's kind of like at a bear house, and there's like a shed full of dog food. And so she's tasked with feeding the bear this dog food every day. And that's all fine and good. And at first, she's not too interested in him. She's scared of him. And then she kind of gets not scared of him. And then she starts taking him for like walks on his chain down to the river because he reeks. And everybody who's met a bear up close says they stink. I luckily have not had that experience. So she walks him down to the river because this island's in a river, and he has, bathes and all the things. And then she realizes that whoever was in the house before obviously let the bear into the house, because one night I think she forgets to chain him up or whatever happens, and he comes in the door because it's not locked. And then he pads up the stairs and he just crashes out in front of the fire. So this becomes a nightly thing, and then she starts petting him with her feet and lying next to him, and then things progress and they get into a intimate sexual relationship, but the bear is not personified. You know what I mean? The bear is not human. He remains a wild animal. He remains an animal throughout. He just does bear things, and she lets him. And then in the meantime, she also ends up sleeping with the guy who's the jack of all trades, because morals doesn't have too many. But it was intriguing. But the best part of the book was actually the afterword written by Aretha Van Herk. And I won't summarize it because it's been a little while since I read it and I'll embarrass myself. But it was really, really good. Really good. So if you can get your hands on a copy of Bear by Marian Engel, get the one with the afterword by Aretha Van Herk, because she's brilliant, and also from Alberta. She was at the same university as me. Okay, and then the last one that I read is The Seven Sisters by Lucinda Riley. This is not the type of book I would normally pick up, but boy, am I ever glad I did, because it's fantastic. It's actually a series of 7. Each story is based on one sister from the Pleiades constellation, I think. Anyway, Lucinda Riley probably is in Mensa. She's brilliant. And the first book is about the first sister named Maya. So basically, 6 of the sisters, the 7th ones we haven't met yet, to all intents and purposes, doesn't exist yet. But the 6 sisters that we meet are all named after the stars in this constellation, and they were all adopted by someone that they call Pa Salt, who's kind of like this omnipresent godlike figure, but he's actually also a human, and he's rich, but he's very secretive. They don't really know a lot about his life, and he has a massive property on Lake Geneva in Switzerland that they call Atlantis. So he dies, and that sort of kicks off the story, because he gives them all a clue and coordinates, a clue about their past and coordinates to where they were adopted from. So this story is about Maya traveling to Rio de Janeiro and getting generations of backstory on her family, and then finding love, because that's happy and wonderful, and it's always nice to read about that. So I just finished that one, and I just started the second one, which is called, just a minute, now that I know. The Storm Sister. I'm not going to be able to save my page because technology. So anyway, The Storm Sister, and it's about the second sister named Allie, and I'm only in chapter 1 or maybe 2, so don't have much of it yet. But it was actually Mrs. D who was recommending this. If you ever watch Stitched by Mrs. D, she reads a lot, and that's why I picked it up. So I thought, well, she usually recommends some pretty good books, but her advice, and she's absolutely right, is to go slow and really savor the book because the stories are really, really good. You kind of want to just rush through to get to the end and find out what happens, but don't. Just enjoy the story and go slow. Just like Stephen King. Enjoy the story and go slow. So yeah, that's what I'm into right now. And I really enjoy my nighttime reading. I used to read like paper books, and I do like paper books, and I have a small library, but I don't want to wake my husband up at night reading. However, I did order something called a Hygge light, which is all warm lights. So it replicates the warm light from a fire or a candle that you would have only had access to prior to electricity, and it increases melatonin production. So whereas blue light would increase cortisol, and they balance each other. So I'm going to maybe put that in my lamp in the room and see if that bugs him at 3 in the morning, if he would wake up to it or not, but we'll see. But in the meantime, my ebook works just fine. I just have a Kobo and I love it. And it's new, so it works great. This is my third one. That's how much I e-read. Third one in about 15 years. Anyway, the family's here. They're waiting for supper. I'm gonna get the leftovers out of the fridge and call it supper. And that's it for tonight. So I'll see you tomorrow. Happy day. What are we on? 16? Yeah, 16. Happy day 16. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.